Hello, hello,
Hello.
hello. Somebody
Hello,
please
everyone.
remove the
Okay.
yeah.
Like this?
So
Okay.
yes. Hi, welcome to DevKami number 171, which I believe is not a prime number. It's a factor of 3, by the way.
Mhm.
So yeah. So welcome back. I'm got back. Yeah, long story. So first thing first. I'm swimming, by the way.
And I am Tristan, by the way.
Gideon, by
Yeah,
the way.
and we
And we
have
have our
Sean.
guest,
Sean, by the way.
Sean, by the way.
Yeah, yeah, and he might as well just call himself regular now. That being said, despite we have Ruby Tuesday next week, the main event for next week is actually the beginning of Ramadan, and for some, this is the only time they can get dates. Of course, I'm talking about dried fruit, not not the not the system to describe time, nor companionship, right? So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
dates.
the Mamak restaurant I go to during
Mm-hmm.
choir rehearsal, they change the peanuts on the counter to dates during
Yeah,
Ramadan. So
correct.
Oh,
it reminds you, okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's already Ramadan.
Of course, it's my favorite pun as well because for some people, that's the only time they get dates. You're so tired. Let's start. Okay. So, of course, the only confirmed event we have is Ruby Tuesday. But
Yeah,
I
but
sus-
so the Ruby
uh-huh.
Tuesday is not like presentations this time. This is more of a code clinic. So this is not
Right.
a presentation based. So if you have any problems with your Ruby code or do you want some help with something, then you can
Mm-hmm.
present it to everyone and people will help you troubleshoot
I
with you
should.
or something. We've had a lot
I
of
should I should I should
success.
reboot the Go one as well. I think probably
Mm.
with the Python one as well. Right.
Yeah, I'm going to recommend my junior to go to the Ruby event. We have actual Ruby code. Thank goodness, Ruby is a saner language compared to JavaScript.
Well, it's a saner language, but some people are insane enough to do meta programming, and then you just don't understand what's
Yeah,
going on
but
after that.
either
So it
way,
really
either
depends
way,
on the person who's using it.
correct. But either way, I will recommend my junior to go over for sake of team upgrading the team. So yeah,
Yep, sounds good.
so let's.
So yeah. For sorry,
Uh-huh.
for these languages, like you have powerful languages like Python, Ruby, but and you have meta programming, which makes things nice. But then it
Yes,
depends on the person to like you can shoot yourself in the foot basically on these languages.
It's nice
But
when
there,
you are building
yeah.
tools.
Mm-hmm.
correct. Put it
But
this
there are,
way,
of
is
course,
also. Mhm.
yeah, put it this way.
It depends on it depends on the development culture. Uh, if
Mm-hmm.
if the primary user of a language is a bit more conservative, system programmers, for example, so you would know that you can do it, but you probably won't do it. You get the idea, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those that it depends on team culture as development culture as well as that. So, but that being
Yeah.
said, you're right. If
Yeah.
people choose to use the special tools,
Well, it depends as well on the language because like there's like Go and Elixir and Rust, for example, which makes it difficult to do the wrong thing.
correct.
So that most of the time, then you're on the straight road. And then there are languages where even if you try to do the right thing, it just goes sideways anyway. So it's there are different
Preview.
categories of languages.
Yes.
Yeah, just wanted to
There
mention
is,
that. And if you're sending your junior, doesn't have to be the juniors. A lot of people can learn from the
correct.
local clinic. So come
Yeah,
and join
precisely.
us.
I would recommend the whole team over, but the senior guys have busy, have life. The junior guys, I can bully them to go in the name of team development. So yeah, that's why I said junior. But that being said, everybody should go. Everybody should go for the sake of upgrading. And also
Hmm.
we out of tech events. So yeah. Let's start with something that is not security because we have more of those. This is cool, even though the name sounds funny. So this is actually FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
It's faster object, more objects. So this is actually a type of object detection algorithms in neural network. And it's actually, here's the cool part. It can fit in 200K of RAM, right? 200K of
Wait,
RAM.
the learning or the learned, like the data set
Inference.
or
the infrastructure.
No. So what? Okay. So you may learn this with very in neural network. You can learn like in gigabytes of data, but they can condense it into the end result of the network will be like around 200K of RAM.
Mhm.
That's the end result. Traditional neural network is in megabytes minimum. Then advanced algorithm can up to gigabytes of memory. So which is the reason why some algorithm require you to have a GPU in 6 GB range for you to actually do inference. This is 200K. Of course, there is compromise. The biggest one is they assume the thing is around the same size and whatnot. And it's designed to be flexible. So it shouldn't be too close to each other, which is fine. Two of these are actually fine because if you put this algorithm on industrial use, you're talking about a very well controlled environment. So and it's target for that lah. It's really target for that. I'm excited because I probably won't use this to detect birds, for example. But let's say I want to no quay, because quay have all sorts of shit. But let's say I decided to go into factory, and those things that come out tends to be the same size. They have two, and this is very useful. So what do you think? Cool, not cool, or too advanced for you guys?
No,
It's just-
no
you just use it,
practical
right?
usage for me right now.
Yep. Correct.
I just think
Okay,
it's
let's
nice that it's open up to it's now open to the higher end microcontrollers. Those that with a few bytes of RAM.
Yeah, but these guys, you're talking about things like the latest Arduino have that. More of that a bit later. The SP32 is that those are like 15. There's like almost a 50 ringgit microcontrollers, so it's feasible this way. So
the microcontrollers that you won't find in your washing machines because they're
correct. So yeah, it's the very small one, probably not there, but yeah. So let's move on. New Easter egg detected after 37 years, and Lord Gaben is inside. So yeah, I'm impressed, but probably not very useful. I'm gonna move
But
on.
where is it the sound file, like, or is it a small icon? I didn't read the article.
It's
A file?
it's a hidden dialogue. It's a hidden dialogue.
Dialog box,
Right.
basically. Okay,
Yes,
interesting.
correct.
Windows 1 though.
So, yeah, Windows 1, which is interesting. So yeah, Lord Gaben. Next one, Spectre V2 mitigation is not effective. So yeah, they tried, but it does not work. There is some effective defense, but which impairs over branch prediction, but it inhibit performance lah. So, and also researchers suggest disable feature like eBPF, unprivileged eBPF to reduce attack surface. So this is bad, and yeah.
But
Well,
does this affect? Sorry, Sean.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know if these things actually affect consumer grade computers. Like, will my laptop that I use for like email, do I need to take care of spectrum mitigation?
I think the attack is less impactful on not shared machine,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
correct.
the patch will affect your performance.
Correct.
Yeah, so
It's
it's like
It's most dangerous on shared environments like cloud infrastructure, like where
Correct.
you can-
Or you have a development machine that's shared by 5 person, or you
Yes,
expose outside.
correct.
okay.
It
So
hasn't
you
reached
run your
the
own
level-
servers.
It hasn't
Huh?
reached the level of RCE yet, not yet remote code
Yeah.
execution. So
Correct. Correct.
not yet.
It's just
Doesn't-
like
yes.
a data leakage, basically. Like you
For
can
cloud lah,
Correct.
like for cloud hosting.
you can see data that you're not supposed to be able to see because you're
Correct.
you're somehow co-located, or you're somehow using the same CPU as the other people.
Correct. Which is almost everyone nowadays.
Which
So,
cloud?
yeah.
So it's just,
Mhm.
but your
So,
computer is my computer.
Correct. That being said, this is a new one. Actually, Arduino this is actually one of many. The Arduino recently had a release of various hardware. This one. Another one that is interesting actually is Arduino Nicla.
Yeah, I don't get these boutique microcontrollers of like hundreds of ringgit, and then you make it like turn on or off your electric fan, for example, for your home automation.
No, you probably won't use it to turn on your fan. But to be honest, you're right in a way that I do not know.
No,
It's
you
interesting
can. I think
for
it's if you can afford it.
Yeah,
correct.
If
But
you want to know
notice
what
that
applications is meant for, you look at the I/O. What I/O does
yeah,
it come with?
correct. Because this thing have all the Wi-Fi and all the thing, but it also contain all the virtualization layer, which is a bit crazy.
Wow.
And
So,
secure
yeah.
Linux OS, I assume they mean something like
Yeah.
enclave
Yes.
and things.
Correct. So yeah, so okay, I try to find the use case lah.
You can run JavaScript on this microcontroller?
Yes, I
that's
mean
the selling point.
actual JavaScript, but
See?
not.
Hey, Go
Actually-
and Rust.
Yes, correct. So yeah,
I don't think-
this is what
I don't think it can.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I don't think you can run Go. Go is a fat binary.
Probably
it
not Go, but TinyGo. This is
Yeah.
probably like doing TinyGo MicroPython.
Yeah,
Correct.
TinyGo is different lah. TinyGo is Go compiled to LLVM.
correct.
It's a re-implementation. It does not follow the Go spec,
Correct.
I guess, for some things. But
Yeah.
Well,
it's
this
close
one has
enough.
2 gigabytes of RAM, so it's technically a
You-
PC.
So you are using something this size as a master machine, right? To control various subsystems. This is what you use it for, probably. That's why I imagine how it's being used. Another one that is from Arduino again, a bit expensive, but these have actual camera sensors and all that. Same idea, but you probably use this. You probably won't use this to control your fan. But
Control your lights.
it have, but it have enough system on board to do some. This mostly for prototype probably, but they also had on board power to do decision, so they control other peripheral.
Yeah, like
So,
the fan.
It's a Cortex M4 lah. It's
Yeah,
still
correct.
very low level.
Yeah, correct. So yeah, as I
But
say,
is
it's
it
300.
the NR52 or Cortex M4?
Yeah, it have that lah. It have that component. So yeah, it's
NR52 is Cortex M4 CPU.
correct. But I think this one is for prototyping. But as I say, the capability is interesting. So let's move on.
You say it's
quickly.
a lot of these modules will find themselves in commercial products. Because it's
Yeah,
just
correct.
soldered in.
Correct.
And
But
you
then
don't
put
have
it this
to deal
way,
with compliance as well, because the thing itself is already like they already did the compliance, which is why it's expensive.
FCC,
Like most
whatever.
of these the radio stuff can be expensive to go with, and so usually
Yeah.
you want to do it in bulk, not just like and if you're doing like 50 units of a custom order, you don't want
Yeah.
to do compliance for just those 50 and then go through all
Yeah.
of the paperwork.
correct. And also, this is why people think that they can use an original Raspberry Pi called IoT, which is a bit silly. Let's move on. I don't want to insult people now. We're going to insult more people soon. Quickly go through that. This is yet another tools to tame AWS. Reason AWS is complicated. This one actually set up logins and accounts lah. And the reason is recently I have to do this kind of thing and it's painful as hell. Right? It's really painful as hell.
That's interesting because one of the people we're talking with wants to go away from AWS because it's too much of
Correct.
like a dependency, and they want
Yes.
something like that's cloud agnostic. They still want to do it in the cloud because it's convenient, but they don't
Yes.
want to be like beholden to AWS.
Correct.
only.
Yeah. So it begin to have a lot more things that sound convenient but maybe not. So I do not know anymore. So next one, so that we can shoot JavaScript after this. We can run Python on WebAssembly. Interesting. Why I do not know. I mean, it's interesting in the way that Wasm is a runtime environment.
Yeah, well, because now you can run NumPy, for example, in close to native
Yeah.
performance. If you're doing it in
I hope
WebAssembly.
so. I hope so, actually.
Well,
If
NumPy
that,
is not really running Python itself, but running binaries. But if you
yeah,
can compile the
correct.
binaries, the C stuff into
Yep.
WASM, and then have a Python kind of access to that, then
Yeah.
it becomes you can run it on the browser.
Yes. In theory, yes, because you're talking about something that compile pretty low level. I'm not saying assembly level. You're talking about optimizing matrices. So you're talking about data structure, which I hope is supported by WASM somehow, right? It probably can. It
Plus,
probably can.
plus you can probably do something like a script, lang equals Python, eventually,
Yeah. Or
and
you
then the
can run
interpreter is WASM.
Is this a
and you
way
prob-
where we can use whatever language you
Mhm.
want on browser?
Yeah, eventually,
but
yeah,
but
because you just need the interpreter, right?
Sounds
yeah.
like .NET all over again.
Yes, yes, precisely. That's what they dream, right? But imagine this scenario. Let's assume that one day in a miracle, we had a miracle, we managed to shrink our language models into something runnable on the browser. Okay, with some miracle, okay, I do not know how. Then we can potentially have a pure client-based chatbot for support and whatnot, without going through server and whatnot. In theory, this is actually nice to have.
Yeah, so you can run a web server on your on your page.
Yeah, I mean that too, which is
Oh,
ridiculous, but okay.
that's what we did. I remember that's what we did with Flash last time.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
precisely. It's all over again.
See,
Okay, I'm quickly go
yeah,
through that as
it's
well. Uh, correct. Uh, PyTorch now natively support Raspberry Pi as a target, so you will
what is
get
PyTorch?
PyTorch is an alternative to TensorFlow. It's very
Mm-hmm.
popular. It's very popular among researchers because they get all sort of control. They can get all sort of control. It's become popular among software engineers because again they got the right level of abstraction at the right level of just right level, not too low, not too high. So TensorFlow try to do a lot of stuff. Uh,
I
PyTorch
think
allows you to have
Torch
proper
PyTorch is a bit lower level, right?
correct. It's a lot lower level,
Oh, you
and
would install that on a Pi and run it on a Pi because you want to do edge stuff, because you don't want
you
your
would
main stuff here, right?
what you do is you would you in a way compile. So for example, this is not a good example. I'm trying to find an example. So
But
what you would probably do,
it's still
go
more
on.
practical to do the training elsewhere and then just use it to consume,
Correct,
right?
Mm,
correct. Because for example, uh, you can compile in a way the network and just use PyTorch as inference.
mhm.
And that's why that's the reason actually, so that you can easily transfer the models. Then PyTorch can read the resulting binary models somewhere. Then you just run your network lah. So in this case,
Mhm.
see here. So what this do is this is loading a pre-existing network compiled,
Mhm.
and with JIT to improve it, because the underlying PyTorch have a JIT profiler to run the network to make things faster. Then this is the reason why you have that, and so that it won't be doing training together, so that you can
Mhm.
actually train and read it with the same code. So
Okay.
TensorFlow, on the other hand, will have other layers lah. So this alternative. PyTorch is also interesting in a way that they do not target GPU only, not just through the Pi. They actually have ways to they want to target like mobile phone and all that, which is why it's interesting actually.
Mhm.
So I'm going to move on. Final off topic before we go to the meat of the story. Uh, so these are uh, open source robotics for agriculture. So it's crowdfunded by community, and there also comes with simulator. So I
What
just
is
find
it
it interesting.
simulating? The
The robot, I believe, the rover.
okay, okay.
Yeah, I
But
believe
like
it's simulate
what
the.
it will do. So it's like you give it instructions and see if like okay, and then give it like a terrain and see if it will do what you expect it to do.
Is this the weed killer?
It can
I
do
think it's
that.
like
It can do that.
it's probably
It can do
watering
that.
something. Yeah, most of the agriculture I've seen are either like checking soil composition, so for fertilizer, or checking soil like
Yep.
dampness for watering.
Yep.
This is like
I
playing
haven't.
logo, but in real life.
Playing logo, right? Like turn left 45 and then go
Yeah,
straight
but
for like how many steps.
this is I believe from what I understand here is to simulate components.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
makes sense in a way, because when you simulate a robot, you're not simulating the field. You have other type of simulation for that. Individual component for robot make more sense in this.
Got it. Yeah. But so I haven't seen an agricultural robot, like at least in like these like DIY stuff that actually digs something on the ground and plants a seedling. Usually
Correct.
at least I've seen something that is already pre-digged and then you just put in
Yeah.
the seedlings, but not that the whole shebang where it digs
Yeah.
in. There's a lot of I think mistakes that can go, like what if the
Correct.
shovel doesn't go through or you hit a rock or something, right? So
Yes.
I don't
And
think that's
so,
what it does. Sorry.
And
Yeah,
harvesting
yeah.
later on yield.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's very
Correct.
common.
Oh, harvesting, yeah. Well, harvesting probably still needs those farm tractor stuff with a human.
Yes. So
I don't know. That would be nice if
I think
farming
one
can
part
be
of
fully
agriculture that is not automated is that you have to cull some of them before.
yep.
Like let's say
Correct.
for corn, you have to cull the rest of the fruit.
Mhm.
So
I just examined a FYP project earlier this week where they had to count.
Mhm.
It was a fruit counter. It was
Right.
meant for a particular company.
Right. Okay, let's go to the meat of the story. Do you want to cover yours first or this one?
No. This is from Sean though. Like he introduced it backstage. Like
Yep.
he said he was just were you just trying
Yeah,
to
I spent my
mitigate this
morning
here?
doing this, mitigating. Spent my morning mitigating this.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and I was
So-
asking the question like, how do you know? How do you get prepared? Because nobody expects this to happen, right?
Yeah.
you
I
just
mean,
check.
this thing was dropped last night, but there was like very little, information of whether or not it's serious, not serious, things like that.
Mhm.
So this morning we picked it up and we were like, okay, this potentially, take time to read a bit more, study a bit more. Okay, this is potentially a problem.
Yep.
And so,
And this is a Spring from the Spring framework, which is very popular. Spring,
Yes.
I was working like what 15 years ago, and it was still Spring, like Spring
Yep.
Hibernate, and then what and
Yeah,
some
Spring Boot,
that
which is, I mean, the Spring framework is very popular in Java, especially enterprise side.
Yep.
And so there are a lot of people using this. So this is a potential problem.
Yep.
Yeah, and luckily, it is possible to mitigate. There are mitigations. So we just have to
Okay.
apply
Cool.
them and make sure.
So this is not a CVE on the JVM. This is on the framework, right?
Yep, on the
So-
framework.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Cool. So then finally, we have Tristan's adventure. Explain, please.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's usually you'll have like a deduplication on saner language like Ruby, right? I actually, if you
Yep.
scroll down, I think you
How about
you can actually
Oh,
run this code snippet here. If you click on run code snippet, this actually runs Ruby. So you can
Yep.
you can press. This is now a code editor. On
Yep.
the if you go to array.unique on top,
Yeah, I read one it.
then click on that, and then you can actually change things.
Oh, okay. I
mean,
can
type-
change things.
You can
Okay,
actually
okay,
type
okay.
it. It's a code editor, and it will
Okay,
automatically
okay.
evaluate at the bottom. So if you want to experiment, that's the same thing. So yeah, so Ruby
Okay.
is saying it has unique,
Yep.
and so we thought, okay, maybe JavaScript has unique as well, and it turns out it doesn't have a built-in function to
No.
uniqueify things, to
Correct.
duplicate an array, and so
Yes.
like doing a search, of course, like how do you duplicate a JavaScript array? There are actually many things in like there's no one good thing or one way to
Duplicating
duplicate.
a shallow one is fine. I think the challenge is nested.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, even in JavaScript, like there's no like, for example, in Ruby or in Go, or like these languages, right? Like
Yeah.
if you search for how to deduplicate an array in this language, usually you have this solution, and you don't want to deviate from that because
Yeah.
everyone will be using it. In JavaScript, there
Well,
are multiple ways to do
the,
it.
the quick way is to convert it to JSON, serialize it to JSON.
Yeah.
That's it,
Well,
yeah.
Yes.
you you can, yeah. That's possible as well. That's on part two. This is part one. So there are
Mm-hmm.
multiple ways to do it. Serializing to JSON is one of those things as well. But yeah,
Correct.
so in here it's you discover a lot of things. So this is the direction that we're going with the blog posts that we've been having.
Yep.
It's turning what you would encounter as a like usual developer in your day-to-day job, and then
Yep.
picking out like what's interesting about this. And in this case, so previously it was the Docker environment variables, right? Like why
Mm-hmm.
is again related to JavaScript, like why is my environment variable always the production one, even though I'm deploying this to staging. And of course, like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, if you read the article, then it's because of the
Mm-hmm.
minification, all of that thing. So this is the same
Right.
thing again. Problem with JavaScript, like uniquifying things and dealing with equality, because you
Okay.
can
Especially,
equality with.
especially some of these languages like JavaScript,
Mhm.
I think PHP and Python as well, is that the reference and value tag are not apparent.
Correct.
Mhm.
So
Well,
that
in JavaScript, these are primitive values. Primitive values are easy to
yeah, but
like
array
equate. Yeah.
an object
Array is an
reference, right?
object. Yeah, array is an object. Yeah. So, well, the thing is, if you do um, set, for example, will do the right thing because
Yep.
it can uniquify like object references. But well, the way, so if you go scroll to the bottom where you do the set, um, the way you
Right.
write it,
Okay.
where I do near the bottom where it's like towards the second half, third, two-thirds of the page down. You're only on the
Magic.
half of the page. No, you're only on the half of the page. If you scroll down a bit more, yeah, scroll down a bit more. Yeah, scroll down. Yeah, the second one is the set.
Oh,
No,
okay.
not
This one.
this one, but the example.
Maybe
Yeah, this is scroll
maybe
up
you just share
again.
yours.
Scroll up a bit more. Yes, that's it. Because you have to read what
Okay.
you're scrolling. That's the thing.
Okay.
Like,
Okay.
yeah, so this is the set thing, right? So you have like the double array. It depends
Yep.
on how you write it, because here you're actually
Yep.
instantiating two objects, and of course the
Yep.
references will be different. But then
Correct.
you would expect that they will be the same as well. But if you scroll down to the third one, which is
Yep.
like the magic one,
Mm-hmm.
uh, if you
Down.
run the code snippet, it's still wrong. Run the code snippet, it's still wrong, but you see the array is duplicated, and there are
Right.
like
Right.
different things because this is similar to the serialization. But the thing is, again, in JavaScript, if you use an object as a key to another
Mm-hmm.
object, you are not the key is not a reference to the object, but it's actually the
Mm-hmm.
result of the toString function of that
Yep.
object, which is why
Mm-hmm.
these um these things is actually object and array as the key
Yep.
if you look into it. So which is why it
Mm-hmm.
is unique, but then of course your instantiated objects are all the same duplicates
Yep.
because the two-string equivalent is object. So there's a lot of things that will catch you if you're not careful,
Yep.
because it all works. Like for example, arrays, you can add properties to arrays to make it like an object
Mm-hmm.
and still an array.
Yep.
It's very strict. So it's the part two here would be looking deeper into equality,
All right.
and what does it mean for something to be equal to another? Does it mean that if you share the same memory location, you're equal to each other? Does it mean that if you have the same representation, is it on a
Yes.
particular like serialization, like what we were
Yes.
saying, or that like should what if you have something like not a number like NaN, which
Yeah.
is defined by an IEEE something, I forgot the number,
Mm-hmm.
that's supposed to be not equal with anything else. So how do you approach deduplicating that? Do you
Yeah.
keep NaN for your
Yeah.
array, or do you say, okay, these are all the same? Because depending on the construct that you're using, For example, again, set will treat NaN as the same.
I mean,
Yeah.
trying to
Triple shutter.
trying to check for equality of NaN is like basically
Yeah.
trying to check for equality of infinity as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct.
well, there is and there's positive and negative infinity as well. Like which one
Yeah.
are you like they're different, but
Yeah.
they're conceptually the same. It's just in different
Yes.
Directions, right? So how do
Yes.
you? So that's the thing. Like, how do you
The Hilbert
reconcile this
Hotel.
for non-primitive values, which is on part two
Yeah.
of this article. And if
Yeah.
you can, I'll can you share the screenshot that I did of that of like another
Oh, yeah.
interesting.
Let me open that.
Yeah, if you can make it a larger as well, this is a bit small. Yeah, if you can see that null is equal to 0 is false, of course. Not greater to 0 is not less than 0. But if you say null is greater than or equal to 0, it's true. It's also less than or
Mhm.
equal to 0, which is true. And this is like a screenshot from Firefox console.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if Chrome does it differently, but it's a very interesting like surprise as well.
Mhm.
So this is like for comparison as well, not necessarily equality, but it's for comparison. It's a thing. And then I think Chi Leong also shared the JavaScript comparison table.
Yes. I'm going to
So
open that table.
yeah, you'd think that equality is easy, but you actually have to remember that there is a table that ensures that you
Equality
understand
is
what
like
equality actually
Yes.
means.
even in real world.
Yeah.
It's very intuitive, right? Like this thing is equal to this, but apparently not.
Correct. But sometimes it's yeah. But sometimes you just have to make your own decision, which is I know it's weird, right?
So the convention
Yeah.
became like the three equal sign as
Yeah,
a
this
Yeah.
is the strict equality. But swimming, if you scroll up this
Give me a
page.
moment. Yeah.
This is actually just the first page. See, there's a second page, and then there's a third page as well, which is
Yeah.
like your Boolean thing, which is not
Mm-hmm.
the same as equality. Basically, it means if like if the if keyword, right? If you do if
Yeah.
and it's empty, then it's like it's an empty array, then it's true. If it's not
Correct. Correct.
or undefined or an empty string, then
Mm-hmm.
it's false. These empty
Yeah.
strings are false, but empty arrays are true.
Yep. Which is weird. It's not okay. Why? But okay.
Yeah, yeah. JavaScript developers need to memorize this at least. Well, maybe not the infinity ones, but at least the God. Maybe just
Yeah.
memorize the URL.
Yeah.
or
Or
don't use this.
yeah.
Don't-
Well, this is an if
but
statement though.
I used to enjoy
but
doing something. I would enjoy doing the default checking in Python, but these days I prefer it to be made more explicit so nobody can
yes.
understand.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Nowadays, I know people look at me weirdly, but I like my code to be blindingly obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a reason for things to be blindingly obvious so that it's harder to make mistakes. So there's this legend. It's not really legend, but it's considered a legend nowadays. It is said that the space shuttle computer is very painful to write because they do not allow complex logic. They must make things super obvious. Your loop must not be two levels and all that. And there's a reason for that. The whole reason for that is because the space shuttle is a complex system. It's a mission critical system. The software must be reliable. And it's also
Mhm.
used to be the Toyota automated system until recently. They have to make code blindingly obvious. Simple
I
logic.
I read some
Simple
of them that
logic.
actually have multiple subsystem, backup subsystem as well.
Correct. So, for example, yes, you have that on top of the software practice. So, for example, the Hubble Space Telescope have three computers. Okay. You know what happened? They used the first computer for a long time. Recently, they crashed. They start using the second system. They use the second computer.
Then the third one is to back up the second one.
Yeah, and this is why the space shuttle, the Hubble Space Telescope is still running for almost 30 plus years, right? That's the level of complexity. And try to imagine that the space shuttle crash is not because of software. Two times space shuttle had problem. Two of them are physical problem. A tile break a physicals. The Columbia is destroyed because of a broken tile. That is an accident from mechanical system. The Challenger explode because of the O-ring. That's a physical system. It's never, unlike the 787 MAX, right? The space shuttle never broken that level because of software. Unlike the airbag controller by Toyota, was it? Right?
Mhm.
That is a software problem. You won't see that in the really mission critical system.
It's like
And
they're
the kind of-
buying for. It's like they're buying souvenirs, right? You buy 3, one to use, one to as a backup, and then one to give
No,
away.
No,
it's more like
redundancy is
Just-
one aspect of it. Redundancy is one
Yeah.
aspect of it, but making your software safe itself is separate.
Yes.
correct. So which is why it's okay that you write software in JavaScript. I don't care, but make sure you are very careful about it.
Which
That's
is
the
kind of impossible.
Yeah.
Which is kind of impossible in
Well,
JavaScript.
yeah, you if so it's like you're crossing a very safe highway,
Yeah.
very safe road, and you're crossing a very dangerous highway. You can be careful, but there are like the environment
Caveats.
can make it like difficult for you to be careful.
Well, you can make your JavaScript project safer by constantly updating it.
Yeah.
But the trick to writing safe software is not to do anything fancy. Stick to a very,
Yes.
very limited subset of the language whose characteristics are very well understood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
correct.
The characteristics, the behavior
Because in
is
the end-
well known.
In the end,
It's
it's
more-
not the language that's a problem, right? The humans are the ones that make mistakes.
Yes.
The software, of course, can make it easy for developers to make mistakes, but in the end, it's ultimately the human that makes
It's the
mistakes.
practice.
That's why,
Yeah.
which
It's
is
the
why
practice.
if you go with the safe, known routes, then it's less likely that you will make mistakes. You don't
Correct.
do fancy stuff.
Yes.
I would put it under the behavior that we introduce, behavior of the software.
So yes, which is
Yeah.
why I used to think that why we need to do testing, because we need to know the behavior, which is why we need to know the fucking behavior. Why you do not test your software using a running database? You use a mock because you want to make sure that the thing you test are constantly.
You
behave
still
that way.
need to test in the production database,
Yeah.
similar environment at least to
Yeah,
simulate
correct.
the I/O and the hardware issues.
But that's the
What-
integration test. That's the integration test.
But
Yeah.
what do you mean I have to constantly test? I constantly refresh my browser every time I save,
Right. So
that's enough.
I do not know whether-
you have to put a sarcasm tag to.
yeah, correct. You know,
No, that's not enough.
so I'm a big fan of test planes, the X planes, and when they build the X planes, even though people love Skunkworks because they make things very fast, but you do know that Skunkworks build small models to test one thing at a time. They do small models to do tunnel tests because and the wind tunnel are constantly predictable type of tests. If we write which is the equivalent thing is that we write with a mock, right? For a small component. We do one small component, test it, then we do the integration test at the end. We have that, right? I don't see that in modern software development. We have that in theory, which is why Python standard library have mock in it, for fuck's sake. It's not a perfect mock, but it exists. Fucking use it.
I
And this is
prefer
how-
I prefer fuzzing than mocking.
Okay, it's my test philosophy lah. Okay, it's my test philosophy lah. Right.
Yeah, just make sure that your asserts don't.
Depends on
use
what you
other
do,
people's
like,
quantities.
But your mock can generate fuzz. So your mock can generate various value. So you
Yeah,
pass
but
your
we
fuzz
need
to the mock.
the thing that we do is that we need the production behavior to be in as well during the test.
Correct.
Especially the
you need
hardware,
to-
you can simulate hardware failure easily.
But software because we stop caring, also the error happen. Okay, also an error happen and we can't predict it, right? You notice that when software errors, it's like, oh my god, we didn't notice that index behave this way, right? Or okay, give me one of your favorite recent failure, big software failure. Okay, grad one. They change index, but they forget to re-index. As a result, everything slows down. Then everything broke down. Okay.
No, how do you need to re-index? But if your
I think-
database has an index, you have a right. Well, what? But
Okay,
if
so
your
what
If you
happens?
change, if you change the
unless you are
index,
doing a view,
No, they do an index. They change the index type. I think they do it in.
or you can add an
type
index.
change.
You can add another composite index, and so of
Yeah,
course all the
it's
new entries will have that composite index, right? Not the
correct.
old ones. Depending on your
Or
query
how
as well,
about-
then you hit one that's not indexed or hit one that's indexed.
Yeah, but how about thinking about your own personal failure, right? Your own personal software failure. You got a lot of these war stories.
we have
So
a lot
I-
of hardware-related failure.
I've had hardware related failures. I've had my computer, because this area has very bad electrical circuitry. So I've had multiple times when the computer like just shuts down because there's a brownout. So I just bought a UPS. I'm not sure if this is a hardware failure that you're interested in though. But yeah, but it's something that
software
you can
failure. Software
mitigate.
failure.
We had
Okay.
data corruption that
Yeah.
initially we ruled it off to no way ECC RAM can allow corrupted memory, but it is because of the ECC RAM.
Yeah, but I have one software
there's-
failure. I have one software failure. How do you test that an index would make your thing go faster? Those things are
Measure lah.
those-
I mean, all this optimization has to be measured. If
Mhm.
you don't
And
measure,
don't-
you don't have the pre and post. You are doing it for nobody.
Yeah.
But now I want you to look at the local the software circles among how many of the people in our software circle talking about measurement.
What do you mean? I
also
refreshed my
all
page.
about measurement.
Everyone is too busy just trying to deliver.
Exactly.
That's all.
Results.
Yes, but
we use
once you-
multiple metrics. We have tracing. We have APM.
yeah,
They
but
added in overhead lah, but we have all this
Yeah.
in.
yes, so you're doing the right thing. I'm working in an organization that I have to introduce this thing because
You know how do we do it? Is that we push it. Yeah, there's no choice. You have to use it.
yeah, I have to say we have to
But-
do it because
But the point is that make it easy for them to adapt the process
yeah. So this is the hard part because
and not feel
all these are
punished by
new.
it lah.
all these
Or-
are new.
Or use a framework that supports it.
No, not necessary because measurement are not this kind of measurement are not native for all framework. So, for example, the database.
No,
automation-
I'll bring you one example. Something that we use. Sentry is very easy to use.
Okay.
It
Yeah,
collects
and
it collects crash logs. You
And
can
it has a built-in tracing as well.
yeah
Like your
tracing,
SQL
built-in
statements,
tracing.
You have like the
Yeah.
milliseconds for
Yeah.
each thing.
And
And
it supports most of the framework out there. Most of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
language.
yeah, I know. Yeah.
Like it's
And
Sentry
if
is
you're
one
very-
of those.
If you don't want to pay for the very cheap cloud hosting, you can self-host.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I have-
the telemetry is like very useful. Like last time we dove into like why is this particular endpoint so slow? We don't know. Is it the code or is it the database? And so you like Sentry can help you with that. Like how much time
it's
is
very
it
easy to
spending
use.
on the controller? How much
Yeah.
time is it spending on this particular query? How much time is it spending bouncing between the controller and the query? Like you have 100 SQL statements
Yeah.
running here. Why is it doing? Why is this endpoint doing 100 SQL statements and all it's doing is picking up like this
Yeah,
particular
correct,
record?
correct.
It's
It's
actually,
that
like,
that is
doing,
very
like,
easy to use.
joining.
We have Prometheus and others, but it requires the programmer to put those points in. But
Correct,
Sentry is a
correct.
very I think Sentry hits the right sweet spot
Mhm.
of being easy to use.
Yes.
And what's important is that because it makes these visible, so it makes it easy to notice these problems, because
Yes,
visibility
and
is the problem. Like if you don't know that, you don't know what you're looking for, basically. Like if you don't know that
correct.
your application is actually slow because it's like you only have like two people accessing it on like
Yeah.
it's your startup, right? Then you wouldn't know that there's a problem because it's not visible.
Yes.
But if you have the numbers and the graphs to prove it, then it's visible, then people will do something about it.
Yes. 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 I think it's the equivalent software equivalent of those dashboard on TV, right? The nuclear reactor dashboard, your car dashboard, right? Your car dashboard even.
Yeah.
We need to add those. Another thing I've been
It's not as
pushing
fancy lah. It's not as fancy lah. The fancy one are Prometheus and Grafana lah. But that one
Yeah, but you do
requires
not.
you have to change your code a bit to put those in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you do not want fancy. You want working, right?
Sentry is just reports only lah.
You want
It doesn't
you
show you
want
real time
useful.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want useful,
Correct.
not
You do
necessarily
not.
just working.
You do not want to be distracted by pretty graph, for example. You do not want to distracted by fancy word.
But,
Yeah, what
And
what I'm
then-
interested.
but pretty graphs are important when you need buy-in from business.
No, I actually not true. Not always true. Not always true. Because if you have a badly performant product, then if you can make sense,
Skew it lah.
because
Skew it lah.
the throughput, if you prove that the thing that you do affect throughput, then it's a very
The
easy
graph
sell,
should be always like this.
right?
Well, but what I'm interested in is like in microcontrollers, like are there equivalent to things equivalent to Sentry? Like telemetry, basically, like cross-cutting stuff. Like basically, it inserts through all function calls and then it measures.
It's called
things.
spying.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
actually, I suspect that do exist. Sean probably know more.
It depends on how low level you want to go.
Yeah.
In some cases, because the microcontrollers are very, very well, how to say, the behaviors are very, very well defined, very, very deterministic, right? A lot of times it's possible to just do it on a simulator.
Mhm.
You don't even need to actually measure performance on the physical device. Physical device measurement of performance can be a bit trickier because
And
because
plus
your
the-
measurement
plus
device will
the-
change your measurement, right?
you see, like for example, you want to measure errors. Errors have to trigger exceptions. Exceptions have to have handlers. All those kind of stuff may not exist on a microcontroller system. It's very bare metal, very low level. So, trying to measure things like this, getting any sort of telemetry or data from microcontrollers is, from the hardware, is a bit more difficult. The most common technique is to start toggling GPIOs. Start toggling physical hardware signals, and then you measure it physically using some.
I think also like
Yeah.
microcontroller, the environment that beside the degradation is that the things that you're interfacing with can be very well tested.
Yeah.
Design.
They actually
Things are
tested
very
the
well,
component.
very deterministic, very well
Yeah.
understood.
Oh, that's the goal, right? To have even your software wants to be deterministic. Unless you're doing AI or machine learning, right? That's a
but-
different thing.
Yeah, but
No,
adding a
actually-
web server,
No, I have something simpler. Your JSON parser are not deterministic. For fast say, your JSON parser are not always
What do you mean?
deterministic.
If you can do a test like this particular string converts to this JSON, that's deterministic, right? You know the end beforehand. At least you know what to expect. That's the
recently-
definition of deterministic, right?
Recently, I look at Zap. Zap actually had a fuzzer for JSON, and it goes to the article that said there's various ways to have weird JSON parser that doesn't conform to different behavior. So in theory, yes. In practice, your things like your JSON parser are not always deterministic. Okay.
it's
So
deterministic
this level of
by the
software.
behavior that it conform to.
Yeah.
lah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's not.
What is not deterministic is if you
You
send
get different
the
results every
same-
single time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not deterministic. That at least that's how I would define it. So
Yeah.
and that's the thing. The thing is for software, we want things to be deterministic. Like
Yes.
whatever
yes.
it's always the same. the same
The
output.
telemetry normally they are useful for us is like whether the client side, because we cannot control the environment of the client side, or whether
Yes.
they are issue on their side. Like let's say they complain that it's slow, but it's actually their corporate firewall that blocks certain traffic. Something like that.
Yes, correct.
Want to know whether that happened.
Yeah. I don't
So
know
which is why
because sometimes
that's why
Or maybe
determination
they
of-
even worse is that maybe they have their corporate firewall actually does MITM.
Mm.
yeah,
which is why having the term, like if you test your software so that it's deterministic, then you can isolate your software as
Yes.
being the problem, because if I replicate the situation and send this input, and I can test the output of my software and it's good,
yeah,
at least you would think that it must be the other party's issue, right?
correct.
And so
Correct.
that's why
And yeah,
is
it can also like avoid the issue. And when the client reports submit the support ticket, it made them
Yeah.
sound like a fool because like, oh, it wouldn't
Yeah.
happen. But some of this telemetry prove us wrong.
Yeah. Okay. But this is
Mostly
the difference.
is on environment that we have no control.
Yeah. And this is where things get from software development to software engineering, right? Because we finally measure things, and we're not
We also like
monkeying around.
for an example is that we found out today that one of our mobile app, when
Yeah.
it's a very simple mobile app, but if the iOS is running low on power, it can OOM our app. So
Oh my
we
goodness.
wouldn't know until we collect the telemetry.
Yeah.
But if they report it, it makes both of us look like a fool, like the client look like a fool. We look
Yeah.
like a fool for trying to like looking at them like a fool.
Yeah.
But it happened, yeah.
Yes. This is why we need measurement.
Yeah.
I've been pushing that it's proper. We need to do that. We just don't make assumption, right?
Mhm.
So yeah.
But speaking of assumptions, if you go back to the article, and then if you scroll to
Wait. Let me
using
go
magic,
back.
to using
Uh-huh.
magic, the using magic, the
Which one?
title is using magic.
Oh, using
If
magic.
you
Okay.
you'll assume that like statements are part. So this one, the second black bar, if you increase the second black bar, if you increase your font size so that people can see, you assume that this is being read from left to right, but
Yeah. Oh,
it's actually
sorry.
about operator precedence. And so this is why you need to test things. Well, first off, don't write convoluted code. And the
Yes.
second one is, even if it's yep, sorry, Sean.
First off, don't assume.
Yes.
Don't assume.
Check all
Don't
your
assume
assumptions.
like,
Yeah, when it comes to
Behavior.
operator precedence, I never rely on anything. I
Yeah.
always line by line.
brackets.
I
Yeah,
always
line by
bracket
line.
them. I don't rely on the
Yeah.
Yeah.
default behavior.
Because
Yes.
this is short and sweet, but you don't actually know. So actually, the way to read it, I outline it below, is you check whether something is inside T, and then you assign the result to the equal, because you'll think that T equals E is the first one because you read from left to right.
Yeah.
But it's different. And then of course the parentheses happens and you negate the thing. It's
Yeah.
This is so first, you don't assume, you don't write.
And also like
convoluted code.
we like whether we are familiar with this notation, whether it means that like those whether it means that if E is in T, assign it to TE.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the ternary, we don't know whether it's a like ternary operator like behavior happen as well.
Correct.
I mean, I think it's well, if you're dealing with JavaScript, you should probably like stop using
Yes,
things
you,
that
you know,
don't really remember.
I'm not even kidding here. Is that I only need when I write JavaScript, it's the only language that forced me to read online documentation all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how do I use this again?
No,
Yeah.
but the behavior, like
Yeah.
example, like,
Yes.
it's the language that make me look like a fool. And feel
And
like
it's actually crazy in a way that certain behavior just doesn't work the way it is. I'm
No,
thinking
the way
example.
you expect, like it's
Yeah.
I
because
I
you have
can
the
write.
Assumed it worked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I can
usually,
write code without having to alt tab to
Yeah.
any documentation.
Yes.
this is like
on a
the
day.
the
Yeah.
this is the software equivalent of the Norman door, right? Where you want like the design of something to have the
Yeah.
affordance, like which is the Norman door is where you have it only opens one way, but you have
Yeah.
a pull bar on both directions. So you will pull
Yes.
something and it's not going to open because you have to actually push
Correct.
it. So you don't
Yeah.
put the pull bar there so that you don't pull it. You always push it or something like that. It's the same thing.
Yes.
Well-designed languages would conform to user expectations. There, like
Yes.
most of the assumptions that you will have will be correct.
Yes.
And I mean, you don't assume, but you have to have some faith at least that, or
Yes.
otherwise you're not going to be, or you're always going to be checking documentation each and every time. But then again, there are some things where if you write a very bad library, which it doesn't conform to user expectations, then
Yes.
it is more prone to errors.
Yes.
And that's the issue with this one. That's why I brought this up, is because I think I forgot what we were talking about when I brought this up. I was going to tie that into to that thing, but now it's completely veered off to a different
Yes.
direction.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Remember Chrome used to
Pro.
have their own implementation of fetch that we have to
Yeah.
cater for. So that even even in modern days, like we still have those browser specific
implementation.
behavior.
Yes.
But since Chromium is taking over the whole world, the browser-specific behavior will become universal.
Yeah,
Yes.
it became the IE.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I'm mainly on Firefox.
They were the last
Yeah,
1%, bro. Last 1%.
Yes. But how about Pro though?
You know,
Perl is
something
still,
funny is that funny is that happened to mobile app as well. I don't know what
Yeah.
I did to this today. Like when I try to compile my mobile app on this work computer, it's now I have to respect the dark and light mode. So everything became just white on the screen because the default color is white and the default
Yeah.
text color is white. So I don't know what causes it. But it's just the library version, the SDK version decided to, for this version onwards, I have to respect the light and dark mode. And it screwed up my
I
UI.
guess isn't it a good thing though that it's forcing you to do the right thing?
Yeah, but I need it to show a customer tomorrow.
Yeah. Yes.
So that's like
Yes.
shortcuts biting you.
Yeah.
In
No
the
wonder
future.
you're still in the office.
Yep.
Yes. Why you even here for the first place?
No, it's since like I'm almost 10 already, so just might as well just stay for the
Yeah.
DevKami.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's the thing lah. JavaScript actually drives me nuts for various reasons. Something that I don't like is, so I tried. They love JavaScript developer love to unpack an object. Then for some
You mean
reason I need to
You mean the structure?
yeah
The correct the
Destructure the
proper
object.
term they use is the structuring.
destructure. Then I need to assign the variable because one of the variable come from somewhere else. Then unfortunately because the object could use cons, then I realized it's so annoying. Then I realized that why. And also IDE cannot complete. The IDE cannot complete the result of the destructuring because the structure comes from a function.
In a way, you can if you use TypeScript, but then you have
Yeah,
to
I was
struggle
going
with
to say
the
as well.
convoluted type declaration.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how to
It's-
properly type
you-
some of the things that I use in TypeScript.
The generic notation in TypeScript are harder than C++ template. It's even harder to read than C++ template.
Yeah. So either
I mean,
way,
to trace it all the way back, like it's crazy.
yes. But for some reason, some of the team members do not like Golang because in Golang, I explicitly declare the structure, the struct, or the JavaScript event. For some reason, they hate it. I never understand that. Why you guys hate
It's
it?
a
If they
because
use
now you have
if they use TypeScript, it's actually not very different.
yeah.
I know that's
but
the
then
point
if you're,
because you make
if
things
you're-
less error prone.
Unless they put
Not-
everything is any to any.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
Any key to any type.
You-
No, I would if I'm in
The-
charge, I would shut the hell out of them for doing this kind of
No, because it's a different paradigm. Like you're doing a typeless, oh, not typeless, but a dynamically typed language, and then shoehorning typing into it. So it's different, and even worse, moving into a
The
like a
the runtime actually
strictly typed.
doesn't provide the type safety as well. So like the
Yeah.
JSON's serialization, you try to cast it to a type, it's just a best effort on the TypeScript end
Yeah.
because they cannot guarantee it on the runtime.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it's
fundamentally, it's still
dynamically
running
typed.
across
That's just
the-
how it is. Exactly. But it's a different programming paradigm. Like that's why you can't like expect people to just change because that's what they're used to, right? And there are
Yeah.
some workflows that enable it. Like it you can do things quite fast because you can quickly change things without dealing with the compiler.
Yeah,
You
but
know-
the thing
you
is, when we build
Sorry, Sean?
product,
What Sean
Okay.
want to say?
yeah,
You know how you can actually make sure that people don't use JavaScript
Hmm?
is to support the formation of a board, a professional board that regulates all the IP and then bans JavaScript from being taught.
JavaScript.
Well,
yeah,
JavaScript is still, I mean, it's the only available language on the browser, so
Yeah,
people still
but
need to
it's
use it.
a cardinal sin to use it for server side. Sorry.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
probably question why, but then again, of course, like results first, right? Like if the client is already using it, then you can't do anything about it.
yeah. But
But-
okay, final thing.
I'm glad
Final thing.
our clients are on .NET and Java.
So final thing. I do an
I
informal
mean, in a way,
survey.
let's
I do an informal survey on Twitter about why JavaScript developers love to use JavaScript on servers. The reason goes to this: why learn another language, which I find a bit weird because okay, for some reason we have bad Python developers and all that, but even in the Python developer circle that I know, I know most of them would not do speed critical things in Python. Okay, it's just common sense, right? It's just common sense. We don't do speed.
no. There are a
critical
lot of
things.
ways to cheat in Python because the queue allows it to easily use it as a scripting front end for C packages.
Correct, which is what people use Python for originally.
Remember back then,
quite a lot.
back then when Python were less popular, we glue it to C library all the time.
Correct. Yeah, so I mean, it makes sense, right? Ruby developers do not make it like you have to use Ruby for everything. Like speed critical thing would offload to another language, right? It just makes sense. But why JavaScript developers do not have this kind of sense? I don't understand.
Because they
I
do
think
not
it-
handle any other language.
I think it allows them to because it runs everywhere already.
No,
Oh, no.
because JavaScript is asynchronous, so there's no jill. You can do callback and all runs at the
but
same
the-
time, and it's very
JavaScript
fast.
is
See?
yeah, all these are technically Jill behavior.
Yeah, exactly. That's
but-
why.
Anything is single
But-
thread.
There is a culture of developer that would use one language for everything. The Java people used to have that.
Yeah.
The .NET people used to have that, especially the VB people. The VB people used to be that.
The iOS people are also
Not
like
not
that.
used to. It's still there because especially with WebAssembly and Blazor,
Yeah,
they can just do
Yeah.
everything without having to touch JavaScript.
yeah. Okay, see, I mean, I find it really interesting. The
But somebody
subculture
did the work
overlap
to
this
do
way.
the translation just like the live view
Correct.
thing.
Yeah, because on .NET, Microsoft, one of the things that Microsoft introduced for a while back is code. Is called there's code behind and there is front end thing. It's a magic thing which I think is very interesting. But that being said, I find the subculture very interesting.
Mobile
But they just-
developers are the same as well. All they need for the backend is Firebase, and then they just do everything on the application.
I cannot
correct.
I cannot actually blame them. It's maintaining mobile apps is so much more requires
Yeah.
dedication because
Yeah,
It's not a platform that we have control, and every year or every half a year, the platform change.
correct. They are almost like desktop developers
Yeah.
in those days, even
Like,
game
yeah.
developers, even
Like-
game developers.
Like just for maintaining the mobile app within our organization, the mobile team has no time to do other things.
Correct.
They just spend the year just most of the time just updating the stuff. It's not updating it like JavaScript libraries, but they had to update it or else they're gonna break.
Yeah, it can't
Especially
unusable.
iOS. And Android and iOS, they recently every version they pump up the privacy control.
Yeah,
So if you don't respect the permission prompt and everything, the app just gonna fail.
yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why they answer like, why learn another language? So I don't
Yeah,
have time
but-
to learn another language.
but desktop.
Without
Okay,
this-
that's a valid one, right? Even for game developers, that's valid. JavaScript is
Yeah.
weird. JavaScript is weird. I'm going to say that.
They're
I'm going
privileged.
I
I
hope
would
I
say
don't.
they are privileged.
I hope I don't see Flutter on the server backend.
No, there's
Somebody
How do
Dart,
you do
doing
Flutter?
Dart.
but then
Dart server.
Dart,
That's-
yeah.
you can
Oh,
do
by the
Dart,
way-
but there are no good frameworks for Dart yet on the server. So
Yeah.
that's why.
By the way,
Let's not have
some
them.
people are pushing Swift for backend as well.
there is
It's not
a
popular.
way to do it. I mean, Swift is like is the replacement for what is this? The C++ that's not C++.
Objects.
Objective C.
Objective C.
Yeah,
Objective
correct.
C, which is a good language.
It's still
in
it's still
itself.
pretty it's still pretty much in early stage lah. I don't think it's gonna
Yeah.
apply. The only
Correct.
organization that push for it is IBM.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
It's
it
time
was
to
a
do the
competitor of
reverse-
C++.
It's time to do the reverse push. All the back-end languages to start pushing the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's WebAssembly is coming.
WebAssembly.
WebAssembly is coming.
Like
That's-
one
that's,
day-
that's what's coming.
One day, I'm looking forward to the day where I can write C to manipulate DOM. It will be so
You can do
fast.
that in C++ already.
Huh?
You can do that in C++. That's what we used to do in my company. We write web applications in C++.
Yeah. No, I mean, manipulate DOM on the fly like JavaScript. That'd be so. Oh, okay.
Exactly. That's basically it compiles down and it generates a bunch of JS, CSS.
Somebody did the work lah.
Yeah, somebody did the work. You manipulate it in C++, all the objects
Yeah.
moving here and there, right? And then the DOM gets
Yeah.
adjusted.
Yeah. So I was looking forward to that. I would try that instead of JavaScript. I love C more. Okay, that's enough run. Because if I say any further, I'm going to offend people. I will get fired. I will actually say name. I will
See lah,
get
use C++
fired.
lah, higher level a bit lah.
C++.
Okay.
C is basically what we call it, a dynamic type language.
Yeah, fine. You're right. You are absolutely right. So yeah. Okay.
Or,
So
yeah,
it's
or
past
Go
11.
or Rust, the like supposed successors for C++. You can
Yeah,
use
D.
those. It's safer.
Yeah.
Or F
Ada.
Ada.
Ada. Ada is painful, but it powers the F-35, so fine.
I
There
think
were-
because of a lot of the standard compliance tools are
Correct.
referenced in Ada. I think it's just
Yeah,
because
correct.
of that.
Correct. But it's,
Yeah, speaking
it's
of
powering
Ada,
the
there
F-
were
Uh-huh.
there were it's powering that, and like it's part of their marketing one, right? There was a hackathon for Ada, and I think assuming if you joined, you would have won. There were very few entries on the Ada. It was extended for many months. It took like for a whole year for a small hackathon. Usually it's 3 months for a hackathon.
Right.
It's a whole year, and then they had to award something, of course, right? So they chose
The
like
award.
certain people. Oh, because they
The
said
Chinese-
these are your awards, right? So
Yeah.
if you
The
join,
Chinese word,
just-
the Chinese saying is that 分鸡肉, like give up pork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just cut. It's divvying the.
Everybody
divvying
get
the
a
price
portion.
lah. Yeah, it's divvying the price lah.
Mm.
With that
So,
said,
yeah,
it's almost 11.
not- it's not very Ada is not very popular in certain circles. They were going for a push for Ada for a more general acceptance, but it just
Yeah.
didn't work.
Correct.
So, yeah, I was just telling that story.
Yes. Okay,
Yes,
lah,
it's over 11.
Chi Liang will be sleepy. Sean had kids
No,
and
I'm not
he's
sleepy.
tired. And me, I'm still tired.
You
with
know,
working with
there's this thing
JavaScript.
called second wind. Like you get tired, then you endure, then you won't be tired anymore. But problem is that I'm gonna have problems sleeping later.
Yeah. So thanks for listening to our rant. You know that we hate JavaScript. We mostly hate
No, I'm okay with
JavaScript.
it. I just have a lot of issue with it.
Yeah, I have issues with
Hate
JavaScript.
is hate takes up a lot of energy.
Fine. We merely tolerate JavaScript.
Okay. I'm gonna end the broadcast. Bye, guys. Good
Yeah.
night.
Yeah.